guys, welcome back to our channel. So today I'm sharing with you a video which I've been thinking about and promising you guys for a while now, and that is my eczema healing story. So how I've gone from having quite debilitating eczema, and that was as little as about 18 months ago, to where I am now, which is completely healed from eczema, all using natural methods. I want to preface this video with the fact that I'm not a medical doctor. This is not medical advice. This is really my story. But I really have the intention that this video will give you hope if you have a skin condition like eczema, or whether you have a loved one with that itchy skin and you're really looking for answers, because I was really in that place about 18 months ago, and I remember how hard that really was, because there's not a lot of hope for some of these conditions because they're not life-threatening. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and you often can go to the doctors or an allergy specialist and just be turned away with a steroid prescription. So I really felt like I needed to make this video, and I've put it off because I want it to be comprehensive. I want to cover everything, but I'm just gonna sit here and give it a shot. I've also covered this off on a blog post, so I'll link that up down below, and we'll get right into it. So I want to start off by actually giving you a bit of background into why I developed, or why in hindsight I believe I developed eczema, because I didn't have it all the way through up to 18 months ago. I had been eczema free since a little child and really broke out in my mid-20s. So I kind of want to give you a quick rundown of the reasons why I believe that breakout happened, so that I can share that learning with you guys. So I'll start at the beginning though. I did have a little bit of eczema when I was a kid. I had a few little patches on my elbows, and sometimes I'd even get a little rash above my lip. But it was nothing really difficult to deal with. I remember I would apply a little bit of steroid cream now and again to knock it back. But other than that, it didn't bother me too much. And as I grew older, it really went away. So fast forward into my 20s, I was really surprised when my skin went crazy with eczema. I had, and I'll insert a picture of, I took some pictures of like my worst moments, which I'm glad in hindsight I did. But I had eczema all around my eyes. They were also really puffy and inflamed. I had eczema around my mouth, on my neck and on the back of my neck, and also it was very raised and sore in my elbows. I would wake up in the night itching. And if anyone here watching this has eczema, you know what that feels like when you're at your very worst and you're waking up in the night and you just can't stop scratching. So I was really shocked when this happened 18 months ago, because I hadn't had it since I was a little kid. Now, in hindsight, I would say that there were a few things that really built up to this outbreak. And one of those things was I had taken antibiotics twice in the last 5 or so years. And I, at that time, didn't really know that I was meant to be very serious with taking probiotics following that. I think I had taken some probiotics following, but nothing much, and I wasn't really religious about it. So those were 2 events where I think my gut was really devastated. And I'll get into why the gut is relevant as I go on in this video. So I'd had those 2 rounds of antibiotics. I'd also started out in a career that really stressed me out, and it just wasn't right for me. So I think that I was really piling on the stress. And then I had gotten engaged and I was buying a house. So there was just a lot of things going on in my life, and I was just feeling very stressed, I would say, is the main thing. So the point I think I wanted to make here is that if there's something not quite right in your life, or something that's really stressing you out, you either have to change the way that you think about it. So this could be a job, or it could be a relationship, or your living situation, something like that. You either have to really frame the situation differently and find a way to be positive about it, or you need to change the situation, because your body just can't live in a state of negativity and being unhappy. It really takes a toll on your health, and I didn't really realize that at the time. Also, I would say that leading up to the outbreak, although I had changed to a paleo diet in the last year or so, leading up to that, I had lived with a very bad diet, to be honest. I didn't realize that it was so unhealthy at that time. At the time I was eating that way, Because I was a 90s child, I grew up with the low fat but high sugar processed foods. So I was eating a lot of snack bars, a lot of wheat bread, a lot of, as I said, low fat foods, but also having high sugar instead of fat to make it taste like anything. So I had this background of stress, not very good diet, and then threw in the antibiotics. So after my wedding, after I bought my first place, my skin just went crazy. It was a couple of months after moving into my apartment where I am now, and my skin just overnight started going crazy. The first place that I really looked to, because I was already eating quite well, I was eating well, I looked at my skin products. And I also was kind of suspicious about the new place. Was it the paint? Was it something in the air? Was it pollen? I was very thinking about the skin and what things could be touching my skin and making it rash. So I went through lots of shampoos, lots of different products. I went to an allergist and I did testing for all sorts of allergies and nothing came up. So I was feeling a little bit at a loose end. I bought a really expensive air purifier. That wasn't making any difference at all. It was just getting worse. So I had also left the allergy clinic with a really high strength steroid cream prescription, which I didn't really want to use. And they'd also told me that my eczema was probably something that I would have my whole life, that it was obviously in my genetics. And they weren't too sure why it was happening now, but they were confident that I could apply the steroid creams and that would be the way I would manage this going forward, and that I could expect for it to flare up every time that I was stressed. So I left feeling quite disempowered. I didn't feel that applying these high strength steroids was really going to help. I mean, I wasn't just dealing with a little rash on an arm or a leg. My eyes were swollen. It wasn't just that the rash was there, they were swollen, and I didn't feel like I could really live like that. And also I was already interested in paleo and more holistic ways of looking at health and lifestyle, and I felt that if I had been well before, surely I could return to having clear skin, and that the fact that my eyes were swelling until they were almost closed means that something is really wrong, and that using this topical cream was not really going to help. I kind of felt like I'd run out of clues, but I started looking into the gut and its link to skin problems. Now, I was a little bit at a loose end because everything that I was reading about things like leaky gut or intestinal permeability and their connection to skin problems, often also were accompanied with gut symptoms such as IBS or gas, bloating, things like that. And these were things that I didn't experience. So I think it took me a little while to really realize that this was a gut-related issue because I had no gut symptoms. But I had read into the link between the inflammation that happens in the gut with imbalances of good and bad bacteria and the importance of the microbiota, which I had kind of neglected a little bit. Even though I had gone paleo, I didn't realize that my gut was a problem. But I took myself to the naturopath and got tested for IgG reaction. So this is a type of immune response, which basically means you've developed a sensitivity to certain foods or proteins. It's slightly different to an allergy, so different to the testing I had had previously with the allergy clinic. And that test came back saying that I was having a response to all dairy proteins. And we did some further elimination diet testing with me, which also revealed that I was reacting to a thing called histamines and also salicylates, which was quite devastating because salicylates and histamines are naturally occurring chemicals within our foods, and they span multiple food groups. So not only was I reacting to dairy proteins, I was having difficulty, or my liver was having difficulty with all number of foods. So for example, histamines are present in all aged and fermented foods, coffee, chocolate, bananas, berries, just spanning all different types of foods. And I thought, I can't live like that. It was really depressing. But I knew I had to at least start with bringing these foods down because they were overloading my system so badly. So when we had identified these foods were all causing the eczema, and it wasn't just something on the skin itself, it was something in my gut. That was when I realized that leaky gut was at the root of the issue. So what a leaky gut is, if you haven't heard about it before, basically a condition where the gut is leaky. It's also called intestinal permeability. Now, the lining of the gut or the intestine should be nice and tight. So the cells have what you call tight junctions, keeping what should be in the gut separate from what is in the bloodstream. But when these cells drift apart, or the tight junctions are compromised, you have particles, food particles, toxins, different byproducts from our bacteria in our gut that are natural, slipping into the bloodstream and causing a widespread inflammatory response. And that is what was happening for me. And not only is it inflammatory, but the immune system mounts a big response because it's getting all these different invaders coming in. So that's why if you have a leaky gut, you're prone to developing a lot of sensitivities to food. Also, you're prone to developing things like mineral deficiencies and vitamin deficiencies, which I was also suffering. I was getting all sorts of muscle twitches. I was feeling very anxious. I had major anxiety by this stage as well, which I should mention. So leaky gut is not as uncommon as you would think. It actually drives a lot of different health conditions, and because our modern lifestyle really causes our gut to be eroded in this way. You see things like stress, also the imbalance of good and bad bacteria, which is impacted by stress, and also by a diet which feeds bad bacteria and yeasts. Also our use of antibiotics, which devastates the gut flora and then precipitates this breakdown of the tight junctions. So once I determined that it was actually my gut, and in particular leaky gut, that was giving me these skin problems so acutely, it was a process of healing my gut, which, mind you, takes some time. So if you're interested in healing your skin naturally, don't expect results overnight. You know, there are a lot of things, a lot of factors that built up over years to produce this inflammation in your gut. And so it also takes many right actions every day before you start to swing the balance back towards health. So it was a lot of work before I saw results, and a lot of ups and downs along the way. But the main things that I did was, one, I was working on dysbiosis in my gut, so the balance of good and bad bacteria. And then the second big thing I was doing was healing and sealing the gut lining. The most important thing that I did for healing the dysbiosis was using probiotics. So I started off with quite a strong dose of probiotic pills. I couldn't take fermented foods because they contain salicylates and histamine, so I just reacted too badly to those to take them. But also it was important for me to use a probiotic pill because it has quite a diverse range of types of bacteria, not only lactic acid forming bacteria, which you find in your fermented foods. So I took quite a strong dose of that. In hindsight, I would say start low if you're very bad, because it can cause what you call a die-off reaction. Now, when I started all of this healing work, I thought that die-off was just some pseudoscience term that wasn't real, but it is real. And basically what die-off is it's a process where you're introducing good bacteria into your system, but in that process they are knocking away bad bacteria and yeasts and putting a lot of burden onto your liver to clear all of those waste toxins from, ultimately what you're doing is a good thing, but it's causing what they call a healing crisis. But in hindsight, I would say go low and slow. There is no need to go through a devastatingly uncomfortable healing crisis. And for me, healing crisis just looked like my eczema getting way worse. So some people get headaches or lethargy or IBS type symptoms, other things like that. For me, my skin just went completely wild and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't leave the house. I wore sunglasses everywhere and it wasn't really worth it. And it puts your body through a tremendous stress. So if you are healing eczema, I would really say it's fine to go low and slow, treat your body kindly and give it the support that it needs. So some of the things I did to support that was taking magnesium baths, or Epsom salts rather, so magnesium sulfate. to help with the detoxification pathways. And then also I was taking milk thistle extract, which supports the liver. So taking a probiotic was the first step. I don't have the actual probiotic pill that I took, but I also took another strain called Eczema, which was an important part of the probiotic regime that I was doing, because that's a beneficial yeast which helps to balance candida, which is almost always overgrown when you have a gut dysbiosis. So the steps that I took to really heal and seal that gut lining was, number one, I was eating a very, very plain diet for some time, which was hard, but totally worth it. So I was eating no cruciferous vegetables, nothing with a lot of insoluble fiber, which is very abrading to a gut which is inflamed and sore. So anything like, think a raw cabbage or raw broccoli or even a cooked broccoli, it's quite rough on the gut. So I was focusing more on really soothing foods, and if you're looking for information on this, I'd really recommend you looking at the GAPS diet. So that's the gut and psychology diet. I was basically on a GAPS intro style diet for, to be honest, I was probably on intro for only a couple of weeks, but I was also using the GAPS principles for quite a long time. So this is basically using stews, really easy to digest foods because the gut needs as much help as possible. I was also doing brief periods of intermittent fasting. So if I woke and I wasn't hungry, I would extend my first meal as long as I could. It might only be until maybe 10 a.m. I'm not going for a long time, but just increasing that window that my gut has to heal and not digest. So my diet was very plain, a lot of soups and stews. I was also taking broths. So I was making broths at home and I was supplementing those broths. So adding to those broths some grass-fed gelatin powder. So broths is full of really great amino acids, proline, glycine, and a whole bunch of other aminos which help to soothe the gut and also to rebuild with those building blocks. So broth I was taking every day. I was also taking things to ease inflammation, so like cod liver oil, high strength fish oil, and vitamin D. I took some in tablets, some from the sun, and that was really important as well. On and off, I was also taking aminos in a powdered form, so I was taking glutamine and also glycine, which is just, again, to help rebuild that gut wall and give the body the tools that it needs to rebuild. So another thing which I was taking was a thing called Quercetin. So Quercetin is a bioflavonoid which helps with repairing the tight junctions and also easing inflammation. And I believe the one that I was taking had a high strength vitamin C in there as well, so good for taming that inflammation and providing some antioxidant support. So I was practicing this approach for quite some time, really ever since I found out about my leaky gut. So that was over 12 months ago now, and it has been a real process. And I have to say that one of the other things, apart from all the supplements and dietary changes that had to happen, was stress management. So stress management is huge. It's something that I really needed to learn through this process. It's not something that I've ever been that good at until now, but I really noticed that every time that my stress was out of control, I would take a step backward. And every time that my stress was under control, I was doing better. Tips that I would have for managing stress while you're healing your gut and healing your skin is to not be too focused on your results. So if you can just take action every day, take time for yourself, try and relax, do things that you enjoy, spend time outside, and just don't think about the results yet. Just focus on what's good for your body and just good for your soul, and it will add up. It's also really important to recognize that the healing journey is not linear. In other words, it doesn't go like that. In my case, I couldn't be more true, that my health would get better and better, and then it would just go down. It was like waves of, I didn't know if it was new die-off or what was happening. I felt like I was doing all this work and I would get a little better and then a little worse and a little better. But the thing is, I was always trending upwards. I would think that I was taking a step backward, but really it was just healing and clearing a new layer, as I like to think of it. And ultimately I've gotten to where I am now, which is completely free of eczema. So just really believe that you can heal, and that if you're having a bout of eczema and you feel like maybe what you're doing isn't working, or maybe you're not going to heal, just don't dramatize it as much as possible. Don't cling on to every itch and symptom. It will drive you crazy. So, meditation was a really important part of that, and just getting out and doing things that I enjoy and not thinking about food and health and gut health all the time. The other thing that I wanted to touch on before I end this video is that I also have been using a thing called helmet therapy. Now, when I started this therapy, I had already been looking after my gut for some time, and I was seeing results. But I really believe that using this therapy has helped to really accelerate the end of my healing to get to the 100%. So if you're working on your gut and you just feel like you're not getting there, and you're looking for the secret weapon, this is something that's really helped me. But you're going to have to be a little bit brave, because helmet therapy basically involves inoculating yourself with a microscopic parasite. And that sounds really gross. How can I make this sound any better? Right, so basically humans have evolved with different parasites and bacteria in our environment, for thousands and thousands of years. And it's only really now that we've become so hygienic. Because if you think about it like this, parasites that have evolved with the human body have mechanisms in place to ensure their survival. So they want the host to survive because it really ensures their survival. So what helmet therapy does is it takes these tiny microscopic worm larvae and you take them into your system, and your immune system responds to that stimulus, and then they're excreted. So you certainly don't grow a tapeworm or anything like that. It really doesn't cause any symptoms, but what it does is it really stimulates and modulates the immune system response. And remember, the immune system is going crazy during an episode like a leaky gut. So it modulates the immune response, and it also has an anti-inflammatory effect. So I really felt like after taking helmets for a couple of months, it was helping with the inflammation in my skin. So if you're at your wit's end and you're looking for something in addition to gut healing, I would really recommend looking into and reading up on some alternative therapies if you're game, and let me know if you want to know any more about that. I think that's all that I have to cover in this video today. As I said, I've also written a blog post on this, so you can get all the details written down. And other than that, I hope that you found this video useful. It wasn't too long. If you're dealing with similar issues and you have chronic eczema, I really want you to take hope from this video and know that it is possible to heal. You don't have to be on steroid creams forever, and that I've done it, and that I was in a really bad place, and I just know how crap that felt, to worry that it wouldn't be reversible. It is reversible. If you want to chat about this with me more, please just leave a comment below, or even better, you could join our private Facebook group where me and Amy are there answering questions, speaking to other like-minded women. There are plenty of women there that also deal with eczema. So I really recommend, if you're on this journey and you want support and you want to be able to ask questions to not only me and Amy, but to also other ladies in that group, go and join. Otherwise, please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. It helps the channel and spreads our videos far and wide. And I will see you in our next video. Bye.